When it comes to passing a CompTIA's A+ exam, you have to do a whole lot of practice questions. In this video, we're going to be doing 100 of these practice questions. I'm Andrew Ramdial, and I've been teaching CompTIA courses for over 25 years. Now, this particular video is for the CompTIA's Core 1 220-1201, and we're going to be doing 100 of these questions. Now, I did an entire course on this because I actually took this exact exam a few weeks ago. I did an entire course on it, a hands-on course where we built machines, we set up networking, we went through all kinds of troubleshooting steps. Really fun course. Links below for all that, plus more practice questions like this. The links below. Let's get started. Now, in this video, it's going to be 100 questions. When I show the question on the screen, like you guys see here, I'm going to read it and I'm just going to answer it. What you guys should do is the moment you see the question, go ahead and pause it, you read it, give it your best answer, and then continue playing it to see how well you did. On your real exam, you're probably going to get anywhere from 70 to 75 of these kinds of questions, and then you're going to have 5 of those performance-based questions. If you guys want me to do a video on performance-based questions, drop a comment below. Let's get started on this. All right, here we go. Question number 1. A network administrator wants to ensure a network printer maintains a consistent IP address assignment regardless of the DHCP pool availability. What configuration method accomplishes this requirement? A. VLAN or virtual LAN segmentation, dynamic lease assignment, DHCP reservation entry, or address exclusion range. All right, answer here, guys, is going to be C. This is DHCP reservation entry. Now, why? Well, when you have a printer on a network, you could go and give it a static IP. But if you have an entire DHCP range, now DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, basically gives out addresses to all the computers on your network. If the DHCP range is the entire network range, what you need to do is you need to reserve certain addresses for certain devices in your network. So what you need to do is go into your DHCP server and do what's called a reservation entry. Basically, all you're doing is you're going to say that MAC address should always get that IP address. So the DHCP server knows that, hey, that MAC address, I'm going to always give it this one. The others here don't make sense. You don't VLAN off an entire printer, then no other computer can get to it. Dynamic lease assignment, that is exactly what DHCP does. You don't assign a device a lease, you assign an entire network a lease. You don't address exclusion range. You don't exclude a range of IP addresses just for a printer. You could, but then you still need to go and give it the IP address. In this scenario, by doing a reservation entry, the DHCP server will give the printer that IP address, making C the best answer. Question 2. A user experiences intermediate recognition issues when connecting a lightning cable to charge their device. The problem typically resolves when the cable is reversed and reinserted. Other similar devices do not experience this issue with the same cable. What is the most probable cause? The device requires a restart. The internal battery is expanded. The cable has internal wiring damage. The device charging port contains debris or has physical damage. Best answer here, and this is a pretty easy question, and here's why. So basically, there's something wrong with the cable here. If you think about it, if the cable was broken, then if it had any kind of internal wiring damage, it wouldn't charge sometimes and then charge other times. Notice the problem resolves when the cable is reversed and reinserted. So in a lightning cable, the one you're using, particularly like an iPhone, you can turn it. It doesn't matter what direction. You can turn it around and put it in, or turn it back around, put it in. It doesn't matter. Unlike a USB-A cable. So in this one here, there's no wiring damage. If there was any wiring damage, it wouldn't be able to charge the device at all. This has nothing to do with the battery. The battery is expanding. It doesn't say anything is wrong with the battery or that it can't hold a charge. It's just not charging. The device requires a restart. Well, in this one here, it's the cable problem, not a piece of software. So the best thing here is probably the port has some kind of debris in it. And, this is a common thing. People get all kinds of crumb or food, or maybe they get some sugar in there, or something bad is going on in there. Try to clean out the port and then try the cable. This is the best thing you can do. Number 3. Which server type is designed to aggregate and store event information and operational data from network connected systems? DNS, email server, print server, or syslog? This one here, pretty easy question, because if you understand that what they're talking about is log information, then D makes sense. You see, notice it says aggregate and store event information. Event information, like in Windows Event Viewer, has the event logs. The event log stores all the different types of things that's happening with that machine, like when somebody turned it on, when somebody opened the program, if there's any kind of errors that happen in the operating system, which show in a log file. What a syslog is, that's basically a server that goes out and grab log files from other workstations or routers or servers in your network. So it can aggregate all the log files across your network into one central server. Now, this particular device will allow you to then analyze those log files so you can determine how healthy your network is. DNS is not the right answer because that just translates domain names to IP address. Email servers for sending and receiving emails, they're not talking about emails here, and they're not talking with physical printers, which is what print servers will connect to. Making D best answer. Number 4. A technician notices extended boot times on a laptop computer. Which hardware component is the most likely culprit? Hard disk drive, CPU memory, network interface card or NIC, or firmware? Best answer here, guys, is going to be the hard disk drive. Now, some of you guys may have gotten B. First of all, it's not C. It's not the NIC card. The network interface card really doesn't affect boot time at all. And the firmware, if the firmware wasn't working, the computer wouldn't boot at all. So it's not that. It's C or D is throughout answers. Some of you guys may have said CPU, but this isn't CPU. This is the CPU memory. That's the cache in the CPU. Now, I know the more cache in the CPU, the more likely the machine will probably be faster. But you know what really slows down computers in today's world? Hard disk drives. I'm talking good old-fashioned spinner hard drives, not solid-state drives. If you replace a hard disk drive in a computer with a solid-state drive, everything works a whole lot faster. So if you have one of these drives in your laptop, try replacing it. You'll notice it's much faster. Number 5. A customer brings in a tablet that was recently dropped. The screen has a minor crack in one corner, and the device will not accept a charge when connected to power. What should be the technician's initial diagnostic step? Force a hard restart, replace the battery, examine the USB-C charging port for physical damage, test the digitizer functionality. Best answer here, guys, is going to be C, yes. Well, you see, if the device was dropped, we know that there's some kind of physical damage happening on this particular device. You're doing a hard restart. This will generally fix software problems, not hardware problems. There's nothing here that says that, you know what, it's getting charged and then it's losing all the power the moment the cable is disconnected if it was a battery problem. In this one here, let's check the physical port. A lot of times, one of the most common things that breaks on these devices, because it's a constant in and out of cable, these charging ports are notoriously bad for breaking. So keep that in mind, making this the best answer. A digitizer is what allows a stylus to work on the screen. So my phone has a stylus. So digitizer is the thing that allows it to take the input, whether it's your finger or it's some kind of device. So they're not talking anything about the device not being able to accept inputs, either touch or through a stylus. Number 6, a technician must select components for a PC build that minimizes visible internal cable routing. What component selection best achieves these objectives? SATA storage connections, liquid cooling system, modular power supply unit, or net or wireless network interface cards? Now, best answer here is C. Yes, C. Now hold on there. I know some of you guys are thinking, hey Andrew, it can't be that. Well, let me explain to you. So, generally speaking, it says best achieve these objectives. So generally speaking, if you have SATA connections, that's just one cable, right? That's just one cable that you're going to have coming out from the motherboard into the SATA device. Liquid cooling is actually more cables in your case than if you just use a traditional heatsink and a fan. Generally, just one cable from the fan to the heatsink. But with liquid cooling, you can have more cables in your case. So it's not that. Remember, it's, notice, minimizes visible internal cable router. Which one of these is going to allow you to put it into the case and has less cable? A wireless NIC card? Well, obviously, this wireless doesn't really have any cable, right? So, best answer here is a modular power supply. What is that? Well, if you take the course with me, and you saw when I built that machine, I had a semi-modular power supply. This is a power supply where you only connect the cables you need. So if you need a hard drive, or if you need a Molex connector or a SATA power connector, you just connect what you need. You have a specialized GPU, you need a power connector for that, you just connect that. So basically, instead of having a power supply with a whole bunch of cables coming out of it, by using a modular one, you only use or connect the cables you need to it. I believe every machine nowadays should have at least a semi-modular power supply. In the course, when we build a gaming machine, you saw me use that. Number 7. A user traveling outside their home country can successfully make and receive voice calls, but cannot access email services. What configuration change would most likely resolve this connectivity issue? Disable GPS location services. Enable international data roaming. Restrict the device to LTE only. Connect through a mobile hotspot. Now, best answer here, guys, when you are outside of your provider's network, in this particular one, you notice they can't access email. That means that they're lacking data, making B the best answer. Now, this here, disable GPS services. This is not going to do anything for having data problems. Notice they could make and receive voice calls, but it's a data issue. Restrict the device to LTE only. Well, LTE is going to give it data, and they don't have it there anyhow. Remember, LTE is going to be within their country. Connect to a mobile hotspot. Well, this doesn't solve the problem if that mobile hotspot goes away, right? Because you'll have to have somebody else set up a mobile device and enable their hotspot, and then you have to connect to it. Not the best answer. B, if you have enabled international data roaming, that means that they can use data from anybody's network around the world. Number 8, when installing network cables in the space above a drop ceiling that serves as part of a building's air circulation system, what type of cable must be used? Shield twisted pair, plenum rated cable, fiber optic cable, coax cable. Now, this is a tricky question, but it is a very common A+ question. It's something you really need to know. You see, above the drop ceiling, like I have in this room, what happens is you need to use a very specialized cable. The reason is because plenum rated cables in these kinds of buildings is fire rated. In other words, when this type of cable burns, it does not release toxic gases and kill people. So they put these in the spaces above in case they burn. People, think about this. If you had normal cables, not plenum rated, just normal cables in there, and these cables burn, toxic gas can come out and probably kill somebody. So you want to make sure you have a plenum rated cable, whether it's a twisted pair, it's a fiber or a coaxial cable. That would depend on how much bandwidth and the distance of the cable, not really if it's plenum or non-plenum rated. Number 9, during computer use, a user reports that the system cooling fan suddenly increases to maximum speed and the display output begins showing visual artifacts. What is occurring? A, thermal throttling and overheating, performance degradation, processor overclocking, application restarts. Best answer here, guys, is going to be A. Now, here's why. So sometimes, if you guys have a laptop, you would have noticed that when you start utilizing it, or you start giving it more applications, or you have a whole bunch of stuff open, you realize the computer fans really starts to boost up. And what's happening here is that as your machine is drawing more power, your computer fans is turning on and spinning up more in order to stop it from overheating. So what's occurring here? This whole process called thermal throttling and basically preventing overheating. That's what this is. So generally, your laptop runs at a very low power mode in order to conserve battery. But the moment you start utilizing it, well, it's going to start pulling more power. That processor gets hotter, that fan turns on, and that's thermal throttling. Now, it doesn't say anything here that the machine is slowing down. So it's not performance degradation. Processor overclocking, the fans that have probably been on all the time and never shut down. This is when you overrun your processor, or you run your processor more than they're supposed to be. Application crashes, it doesn't state anything in the question that applications are crashing actually. Number 10. What capability is commonly found in managed switches, managed network switches, but not in unmanaged switches? PoE, VLAN, web content filtering, or traffic load balancing? Best answer here, guys, is B, VLAN. Now, PoE, power over Ethernet. Power over Ethernet is when you allow power to go through a network cable to power up devices like I have on my desk here, like this camera. You see, if you was to plug this camera into the wall, how would you power it up? Would you have to run an AC adapter? Well, where are you going to plug the AC adapter if this thing is in the ceiling? So what PoE does is that it allows us to run actual power through your Ethernet cable, and that's called PoE. Now, you do need a PoE switch. PoE switches doesn't need to be a managed switch. In fact, the one this one was connected to is an unmanaged switch. Web content filtering. Web content filtering is generally done on a router, not on a switch. Traffic load balancing, that's actually done on a device called a load balancers, which distributes different forms of requests across many servers. By the way, web content filtering can block websites depending on a user. Now VLAN. VLAN allows you to segment your network and break up your network based on different segments. That would be a VLAN. That's done on a managed switch. You cannot get that on an unmanaged switch. Number 11. What distinguishes Type 2 hypervisors from Type 1 hypervisor? A. Installation directly on hardware. Requirements for a host operating system. Management only through local console. Dependencies on specific processor features. Okay, best answer is going to be B, correct. Here's why. So, Type 2 hypervisors versus a Type 1. A Type 1 hypervisor is basically a software that installs on the actual hardware. This is going to be software like VMware, ESX, Microsoft's standalone Hyper-V would be considered a Type 1 hypervisor. Those things are basically operating systems that you install directly on your hardware, and then you put virtual machines on them. So by the way, if you didn't know what I was talking about, hypervisors are related to virtualization. This is different than a Type 2 hypervisor, which you generally install on an operating system like you would have on Windows. If you install VMware Workstation, that you just install it directly on your Windows box, and then you install virtual machines on it. So a Type 1 hypervisor does install directly on the hardware. It is managed only through a local console, right? So it has a specific interface that you can log into and manage it, and it does need a specific processor. If the processor doesn't support virtualization, you can't actually run it. Making B correct. 12. Which TCP port number is associated with FTP operations? Now, before I show the answer on this one, I want you guys to review your exam objectives. Now, your exam objectives, I think it's 2.1. It actually has a list of protocols on all the corresponding ports that you should make sure to remember that for your exam, as I got questions like this when I took this test too. So, which port number is associated with FTP? The file transfer protocol, and that is going to be port 21. Now, FTP allows you to transfer files across the network or even across the internet. 53, this is going to be DNS. 68, I forgot. You guys can tell me in the comments below. Yes, guys, unfortunately, Andrew can't remember every single port. 389, is that LDAP, I believe? Is that 369? I forgot. Unfortunately, guys, I don't remember ports. Before I take the exam, I'll just review the port numbers like you should be doing. Okay, so remember port numbers for your exam. I think I have another questions like this coming up a little bit later. Number 13, a user working from an international office needs to print documents using a shared folder. The user laptop cannot access the public internet directly. What protocol enables printing from a shared folder? Okay, A, automatic document feeder, USB, PCL, SMB. Okay, best answer here, guys, is going to be SMB. Now, this is kind of a tricky question. Automatic document feeder is a garbage answer. The automatic document feeder is when you have a printer and you can put like a whole bunch of documents at the top of it and it feeds it in one by one to copy or scan it. This is not that. USB is how we would connect a printer to a server or to a computer. Universal Serial Bus. Now, PCL, that's the protocol we used to print from our workstations to our printer. This one here is not talking about that. This is actually enables printing from a shared network folder. In other words, you have to be able to open the documents from the shared printer folder. That's the server message block. The SMB is what allows file sharing across the network. It's a tricky question because it's not saying that they actually can't print. Then the answer would have been PCL. It's saying that they really can't get to this printer folder that has these documents in it. Notice it says needs to print documents from a shared network folder. There's nothing actually wrong with it's nothing actually wrong with the printer. It's something wrong with getting to that folder. SMB needs to be enabled in order to share folders across the network. Number 14, a user connects an external monitor to their laptop for additional workspace, but both displays show identical content instead of extending the desktop. What should the user do to resolve this issue? A, run the hardware detection wizard to configure the new display. Obtain a docking station for monitor connectivity. Enable the Windows tilting feature for multi-window layouts. Access display setting and configure the monitor for extended display mode. So best answer here, guys, is D. Now, if you have a laptop and you connect another monitor, so some laptops has like an HDMI port on it, or some of them supports Thunderbolt ports, even USB-Cs nowadays, you can use to connect an external display. So if you connect an external display, what you want to do is you want to right click on your desktop and go in to display settings and then change it. It might say clone. If it says clone, it's going to show you the exact same settings that you would have on your monitor display, and then you select extended display. This is more of a configuration thing. It's not that it didn't detect the hardware. That's A is wrong. It did detect it. Notice it says both displays show identical connection. Obtain a docking. You don't need a docking station. You would only need this if the monitor wasn't working, which it is working. It's showing you what's on the laptop screen. Enable Windows. No, you don't need this because you don't need to tilt the monitor. You don't need to make it portrait or landscape here. Best thing here, go and change the settings from clone to extended display. 15. What is the primary purpose of NFC technology? Establishing wired connections among multiple devices. Creating a short-range wireless communication between two devices in close proximity. Enabling wireless connectivity amongst numerous devices. Provide direct computer-to-computer connections for file transfer. Best answer here, guys, is going to be B. Now, NFC, near-field communication. You have that on your phone. Where's my phone? Somewhere here. If you guys have NFC, you put your credit card number on your phone, Google Pay, Apple Pay, Google Wallet or something. You put your credit card in. You make sure that you enable NFC on your device. Like I have the NFC logo right there. You see the NFC? You see that little? And there we are. Come on, camera. There you go. See that NFC right? So I just enabled it right there. So by enabling that way when I'm ready to go and pay, I'm just gonna go up to the POS or the register, and I'm just going to put my phone close. I'm not going to touch it. I'm just going to go very close to it. So it's a short range wireless connection between two devices, which is my phone and the NFC reader. And I'm going to go click and they're going to say, paid. And I'm going to go away. So if you use these types of things, the technology that's making that work is called NFC. Establishing wired connections. No, it's wireless. Enable wireless connectivity amongst numerous devices. That's an access point, guys. Provide direct computer-to-computer connections. I think this is more like network cabling would do this. NFC is definitely not that. Not for file share. Number 16. Several friends gather to play multiplayer video games with one person hosting a game server. They all want to participate to connect to the game server while maintaining the internet access in the same house. What type of network should they configure? SAN, MAN, LAN, PAN. Best answer here is a LAN. Now, let me explain to you guys why. You see, these folks is setting up somebody's hosting a gaming server, and everybody's going to be connecting to this gaming server in the same house. Within that same house, this is a network generally limited to a building. That's called a LAN, a local area network. The other one, the opposite to this, would be a WAN, a wide area network. That's like if they're connecting houses across the globe. So if somebody had a gaming server and then they were playing games across the world and somebody's hosting it and you have friends all across the world, then you guys have to set up a WAN for you guys to communicate generally through the internet. The internet is the world's largest WAN. But this is a network within a house. A MAN, a metropolitan area network, is a network within a city. So maybe you're connecting different buildings within the same city. A PAN, a personal area network, you guys have this. If you have a phone with Bluetooth to your Bluetooth headset, or maybe over to your laptop or something, that's going to be a personal area network. This is a network with just your devices. Generally, it's Bluetooth connectivity. A storage area network is when you have a big box of drives with very high-speed connections given out to servers. That's not what this is. And you can see the best answer. Number 17. What benefit does a hybrid cloud deployment model provide compared to using only public cloud infrastructure? So, decrease administrative complexity, support for multiple hypervisor platforms, compliance with geographic data storage regulation, access to both infrastructure and platform services. Best answer here, guys. Remember, they're saying what benefit is hybrid cloud deployment. So in this particular one, now this is a tricky one because it's a hybrid cloud. Remember what a hybrid cloud is. A hybrid cloud is when you have public cloud and private cloud, right? You're utilizing a combination of both. The question is, why would you want to do that? Well, decrease administrative complexity is not correct because if you think about it, it increases complexity. As now you have to manage both public cloud and you have to manage private cloud. So no. Support for multiple hypervisor platform, you can get that on any type of cloud. Access to both infrastructure and platform services. Generally, what's in the cloud, you're not going to have direct access to the infrastructure. Now, the reason why you would want to do a hybrid cloud is when you have more control. Certain things you may want to keep on a private cloud and certain things you're going to want to put in the public cloud. It just depends on the confidentiality of the data that you're storing. You can see the best answer. Number 18. Which feature allows a user to share their mobile phone's internet connections with their laptop? Infrared connections, NFC, Wi-Fi, mobile tethering. Easy question. Mobile tethering. So when you tether your mobile device to your laptop, basically you're setting up a hotspot and you'll be able to share internet. I do it all the time from my phone to my laptop. So my laptop gets internet directly through my phone. So turn on a mobile hotspot. Infrared communication. That's a really old thing. I mean, I haven't seen laptops with infrared connections on them since 2008, something like that. Near field communication, we covered already. This is going to be short range connections. Wi-Fi is how we connect general to the internet or how we connect to a general network. In this one here, we are connecting our phones to our mobile devices. We're tethering them together. 19. A user report their desktop computer has no lights, no fan spinning, no sound when they press the power button. So no fans, no lights, no sound. What component is most likely responsible? PSU, GPU, RAM, CPU. Stop right here. Stop the video. Hold on. CompTIA loves acronyms. Acronym galore on this test. Now, when you're taking your exam, on the exam objectives, you must go through the exam acronym list in the last pages of the exam objectives. So download the exam objectives. I'll put a link below. And go through those acronyms. Make sure not only do you know what they are, okay, I want you guys to understand, just don't be able to recite them that PSU means power supply unit. Just don't know that it means PSU or GPU or RAM or CPU. Just don't know what they mean, right? be able to recite them, understand where they're used and why they're used. Like, you should know what the power supply does and what the GPU is doing. Because if you knew that PSU means power supply unit, you notice when they press the power button, nothing is happening. So that means that, you know what, it's the power in the machine. So the PSU. Now, the GPU is the graphics card. Nothing is turning on here. The RAM, notice it says no fans, no sound, no lights. The CPU, the machine isn't turning on. Nothing here. I mean, you changing anything here is not going to help because there's no power coming to the motherboard. If some kind of power hit the motherboard, fans are supposed to spin up. Even if the CPU is dead, the system fans should probably still turn on. Number 20. A printer in a central office location experiences frequent printer jams. What action should a support technician perform to address this issue? I want to point out something to you guys. There was a fair amount of printer questions on that exam. You know, as we move into the next century or we move into the 2020s, I would expect CompTIA to realize that people really don't print as much as anymore, but CompTIA still believes that people print. In fact, I had a question on a dot matrix printer. I don't have one of those in this set, but know that via test. Answer here, guys. Notice printer jams. Now, here's the problem with a printer jam. Printer jams are caused by many things. Generally, the pickup rollers, the rollers moving the paper through the printer, sometimes even the toner kits and all that. So the best thing you can do is if you just replace the toner, a new ribbon, a printer ribbon, probably not, you know, unless the only time you're using a ribbon cable is when you use dot matrix. Replace the print head assembly. By doing the maintenance kit, it comes with almost all of these components, including pickup rollers, separation pads, transfer rollers, and even diffuser components, is really what you're going to get when you have a maintenance kit. So maintenance kit is a full service job for a printer. Keep in mind, a printer jam can be caused by many things. 21. After installing and registering a new printer, a technician receives notification from the manufacturer about a security vulnerability that can be fixed. What should the technician do next? Turn off wireless networking capabilities, activate audit log features, apply the latest firmware update, remove the default gateway configuration. Well, you notice that the manufacturer has a fix with his vulnerability. Well, that just means to update the printer, right? Now, how do you update a printer? Well, if they're going to fix a vulnerability, generally it means it's a software vulnerability. A printer really only has one software, which is its firmware, technically its operating system. So what you want to do is update the operating system. Turn off networking, which means that the printer wouldn't work across the network. You should log it to know who's using it. And if you remove the default gateway, well, the printer can't really get any kind of updates anymore. You just took out its internet connection. So the best thing here to do, if there's a vulnerability that can be fixed, download the latest firmware, which is going to be its operating system. 22. A technician builds a new computer that successfully completes POST. So you know the devices of POST, right? Power on self-test, but fails to load the operating system. Which components most likely fail? Sound, CPU, PSU, or HD? Well, best answer here, guys. Again, what most likely failed. Now, it's not loading the operating system. For a computer to pass the post test, your CPU, your RAM, your power supply, general motherboard should be working. A computer can pass the post. How do you know when a computer passes a post? Generally, it goes beep. Back in the days when most computers used to do that. When a computer passes a post, it generally means your hard drive is good. Not your hard drive, I'm sorry. Your CPU, your RAM, obviously your power supply, because you probably should see a screen come on, is generally good. A computer does not need a hard drive to pass post. Now, notice it says your operating system. Where's your operating system coming from? It's coming from your hard drive. So what you want to do is, hey, check the hard drive. That's probably failed. Why is it not the sound card? Because the sound card has nothing to do with loading an operating system. So definitely not that. Make indeed the best answer. 23. A user experiences slow internet browsing, accompanied by high CPU and memory utilization, with pop-up windows appearing every minute. Pop-up windows, huh? It's probably not a good thing. What should the technician do next? Escalate to network team for connectivity analysis, download and install updated device drivers, update anti-malware definition and perform a system scan, verify wireless configuration of DHCP settings. Best answer here, guys. Now, this answer was given away because if you think about it, pop-up windows, that's generally some kind of virus on this person's machine. You escalated, it's not a network problem, it's a workstation problem because it's pop-up within that station. And it's not a driver problem because drivers don't have pop-up windows, probably trying to sell the user something. Verify wireless configuration. The machine has internet. If not, it wouldn't have all kinds of pop-ups. Best thing here, guys, is let's update the anti-malware and scan it to see if we can remove that infection on that machine. 24. Which environment is most appropriate for safely testing a file suspect of containing malware? Multi-tenant cloud environment, development testing, cross-platform virtualization setup, isolated sandbox. Best thing here, guys, is a sandbox. Now, let me explain this here to you guys. When you are working in a network and you receive a file, like somebody received an email, and you're not sure if that attachment in that email is malware or not, you should send it to information security. They will then open it in what's called a sandbox environment. A sandbox environment is basically an environment that's isolated off the network. They're in a quote unquote a sandbox, which means nothing gets out of it. Everything is within the box itself. They would then open that file, that attachment, and then they're going to see, well, oh, did it explode? Did it have a virus? Because if it did have a virus, well, you know what? No big deal. It's in the sandbox. The virus can't get out and affect the rest of the network. So that is a sandbox. Cross-platform virtualization. This means if you execute it there, all this means is that you have a variety of different virtualization machines and they're all going to get infected. A development testing environment, whatever test code they have in there is going to get infected. You don't want that. Multi-tenant cloud environment, that means you're going to infect everybody in the cloud environment, potentially dependent on the malware. Nick and D, best answer. 25. I think I had a question very similar to this on the real exam. It's easy if you know resolutions. Which display resolution is commonly referred to as Ultra HD. So Ultra HD is 4K. HD is generally 1080p, and you also have 8K at the bottom. So you have 1080, 2K, 4K, 8K is how this is laid out. Make sure you understand which one is like Ultra HD for your exam. Make sure you understand the terminology behind these resolutions. Simple question. I think I had one very similar to this. 26. A technician investigates stylus charging problems on identical company issue tablets. Some users experiences no issues, while others report their stylus charge inconsistently and have short battery life. Users can purchase their own accessories. Interesting. What is most likely to cause? Tough question, by the way. Certain protective cases interfering with charging. The tablet requires software updates. Some tablets have manufacturing defects. The problematic stylus need firmware updates. Tough question here. Yeah, what did you guys get on this one? So let me explain to you why this is and how it kind of gives it away. You notice identical company issue tablets. Identical. That means that they all have the same software. So it's not a firmware update. That's going to eliminate D. It's not a software thing. It's not a firmware or software thing because they have the same, they're the same tablets. They're all identical. So it's not that. Notice some users have no issues while others have a stylus some of them have short battery life. But the part that gives this away, their own accessories. You know what accessories are? Cases. That's an accessory. This case, this clear case I have on this phone, that's an accessory to this phone. And depending on how thick this case is, sometimes the wireless charging works and sometimes it doesn't work. Best answer here, guys, is the case can be causing it. Now, some tablets have manufacturing defects. I kind of like that one, but you notice It's inconsistent. If it was a manufacturing defect, it wouldn't have been inconsistent. It just wouldn't have worked, making A the best answer. 27. A user prints a document from a laser printer, but when the user touches the page, the text and image smudges off. The technician replaces the toner cartridge, but the problem continues. So we know we have toner, right? Which component should the technician replace next? Fuser assembly, image and drum, developer rollers, discharge lamp. Okay, the best answer here, guys. So if something comes out of a printer, and generally speaking, all right, I'm talking a laser printer, by the way. If it goes through a laser printer, there's something called a fuser assembly. The fuser assembly is what heats up. Okay, the paper goes through the assembly, and it's very hot. It melts the toner to the paper. If this thing fails to work, or it's not working correctly, it comes out the printer, but then the toner isn't completely melted on the paper, not all, so you can actually wipe it off or smudge it up. So that means the fuser assembly. If the image and drum goes bad, the image would be all messed up, but you wouldn't be able to smudge it. The developer roller, the image would be bad. The discharge lamp, once again, these here would affect more of the image, not just the toner being rolled away. 28. Which wireless frequency provides the best penetration through physical obstacles like wall? 2.4, 5, 7, and near field communication. The best answer here, guys, is going to be 2.5. For your exam, please know the difference between 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. I had a question like this on the exam. So near field communication is not used in wireless. That's for short range. We talk about like getting paid. 7 gigahertz, that's not a wireless thing. It's either 2.4, 5, and 6. 6 being the newest one. Notice 2.4 gigahertz. All right. These things have longer wavelength, and they have 2.4 is best thing when they can go through walls and furniture. So if you have a lot of walls in your house, you should use 2.4 over the 5 gigahertz. For your exam, I do have, in that section, there is a slide that has a table with the differences between them. Make sure to know that table for your exam. 29. What type of network does a Bluetooth connection between devices represent? I kind of gave you guys the answer to this one, didn't I? Personal area network is basically, or a PAN, is a network between your devices, between your phone and your headset, for example. That is a network. Data is transferring between that headset and your phone. LAN is a network within a building. The WAN is a network across the globe, wide area network, and the storage area network is a big box of disks or drives that you share out amounts generally, not for your house, but for servers in large networks. 29, 30. Multiple organizations within the same industry sector wants to share cloud infrastructure. So multiple companies, same sector. What cloud deployment model would they most likely deploy? Public, hybrid, community, private. Best answer here, guys, is going to be a community cloud. So community cloud is when multiple vendors combines together to form a cloud system that fits their needs. For example, let's say you have multiple gaming providers, wants to have a gaming server to run their games, but nobody wants to bridge the expense alone. So they call together company A, company B, company C, and they build out an entire community cloud just for them. So community cloud is a whole bunch of companies coming together in order to form a cloud system. A public cloud, anybody can access it. It's not limited to a few different companies. A hybrid is a combination of either community, private, or public, or any combination of those. And a private cloud is just one company. A community cloud is a few different companies. Public is everyone, and a hybrid is a combination of any of those three. 31. Which scenario represents VDI implementation? So you have to know what VDI stands for, right? Virtual Desktop Infrastructure. Delivering graphical interfaces from a central server to a thin client. Creating isolated sandbox environments for testing purpose. Deploying high-performance workstations with locally installed OS. Running virtual machines servers on a hypervisor platform. There's only one good answer here. So, VDI. These are virtual desktops. A lot of companies are moving to this. So what you're doing is you have a box, a really powerful box, and this is mostly in the cloud. Amazon AWS provides this. So you have basically a workstation in a cloud, and users in the company connects to the cloud. They connect to this workstation. It's like they basically remote desktop into the device. So what you have, you're delivering the GUI from this workstation to the user, and they don't really have much on their computer because their computers are basically very thin. It doesn't need a lot of hardware because all of this processing is done on that central cloud-based desktop that they're using. It's not a sandbox environment. It's meant for users. It's not isolated off the network. High performance, it's not a locally installed operating system. No. It's the complete opposite. That operating system is installed in the cloud somewhere. Running virtual machine servers on a hypervisor platform. That's technically its underlying infrastructure, but that's not really what the question is. Is what represents an implementation of it, making A the best answer. 32. An organization needs to implement a disaster recovery solution utilizing virtual machines. What cloud service model is most appropriate? Notice, utilizing virtual machines. Infrastructure, VDI, platform, software as a service. So infrastructure service, platform as a service, software as a service. It's definitely not B. I'll tell you guys that right now because we just went over that. They're not asking for a desktop. They're doing a disaster recovery. When they do disaster recovery, they're talking about servers here, not just desktops. In which cloud model would you be able to actually set up your own desktops? Is basically what the question is. Not desktop, I'm sorry, servers. Where can you have your own virtual machine service? Well, in infrastructure as a service, you manage the entire machine. You have access to the entire operating system of the virtual machine in the cloud. Versus platform as a service, AWS or whoever your cloud provider, they would control all of the machines underlying. They would control the operating system, they would control the server software installed on it. Whether you're running some kind of web server or database server, they would control that. And software as a service has no access to anything of the virtual machine. You can only access the application, making A the best answer. 33. A technician connects a hands-free automotive system using Bluetooth technology. What security measure should be implemented during this pairing process? So if you ever connect your phone, got a little bit of a newer car out there, or you connect it generally to these modern cars or even devices nowadays, there is something you got to know. BitLocker encryption, biometric authentication, trusted platform module. This is abbreviated as TPM, PIN code verification. The answer is a PIN code. So when you connect Bluetooth to a device, sometimes it says, hey, verify that the PIN is correct on the device. In doing that, in fact, I just connected this. My wife's car had a problem. They had to change the battery out. When I repaired my new phone, there's a new phone, to that car, what happened was it says, hey, can you verify the code on the phone that's popping up is the one that's popping up on the screen to verify that this phone is the thing I'm actually trying to pair it with. So it's PIN code verification. TPM, the Trusted Platform Module, stores cryptographic keys for BitLocker encryption. This does drive encryption. Biometric authentication is when you're going to utilize something like your eyes or your thumbprint in order to authenticate. That's not what it is. Bluetooth does not have that. 34. All right. A technician troubleshoots connectivity between a laptop's USB-C port and the projector. The same laptop functions correctly when connected to a USB-C docking station. So it seems like the port works, right? The projector is properly configured, and the USB-C cable successfully charges other devices. What is the issue? The cable requires power injection device. The cable lacks Thunderbolt protocol capability. The cable requires an adapter for laptop capability. The cable provides insufficient power delivery. Well, best answer here, guys. Tough question, but let me show you guys how to figure it out. So they're eliminated. Notice it says troubleshooting between a laptop. The same laptop functions correctly when connected to USB-C docking station. So the port on the device works. We know the port works, right? The projector is configured and the USB-C. So the USB-C successfully charges. So it has enough power, insufficient. So D is incorrect right off the bat, just based on that statement. The cable, there's no such thing as a power injection. Laptops don't need power injections. Projectors have their own dedicated power sources. They don't use power from a laptop to power up. So A doesn't make sense. The cable requires an adapter for a laptop. No, it's a USB-C. Now comes B. Why B though? So a lot of times when you're using USB-C, remember USB-C is an interface that's utilized by the USB standards and now the Thunderbolt standards that are out there. And Thunderbolts are faster and they do support a lot of video. A lot of video devices are coming out with Thunderbolt. So that's the reason why that's there. So Thunderbolt supports things like display ports or Thunderbolts. And if you ever see a USB-C and it has a little squiggly like lightning bolt, that's a Thunderbolt port. That's the best answer of these here because the question actually eliminates D. It eliminates, A doesn't need it. And there's no adapter for laptop compatibilities. Either it works or it doesn't work, right? It's either if it fits, it technically should work if it has the right standards. 35. A high-performance workstation with RAID 5 storage exhibits slow data access and occasional file retrieval errors. Investigation reveals one drive in the array displays an amber indicated light. What action should the technician take? Investigate network connectivity issues affecting performance, upgrade all array drives to higher capability, replace the failing drive and initiate an array rebuild, format all drives to eliminate software corruption. Best answer here, guys. So when you're looking at a RAID 5, so RAID 5 is done with 3 hard drives. It strips the data across multiple drives, across all 3 drives, and it adds a parity bit. When one of those drives fail, it's not if, right? It's when one of those drives fail, because one will always fail, it can actually recreate that failed drive's data with the other 2 drives' parity bits. So parity bits is used to recreate data when it's lost, in its simplest term. Now, generally speaking, when you're looking at for example, like a NAS system or network attached storage, when you look at these systems, and generally green lights are always a good thing. Amber lights are generally not a good thing, especially on devices. If you see like an amber light, it generally means that the actual hard drive is dead in that array and you need to replace the drive. There's nothing here with network. Network performance has nothing to do with a storage array. Higher capacity, no, the drive is dead. You upgrading it to higher capacity doesn't really help that. Reformat, it's not a software, this is a hardware thing. The RAID array is dead. When one of the drive dies, because you're now only utilizing 2 of the hard drives, it has to recreate the lost drive's data. That's what's causing it to slow down in a RAID 5. 36. Which network device supplies electrical power to connected equipment through network cabling? Edge router, PoE switch, wireless access point, patch panel. This here we went over already. PoE stands for power over Ethernet. In this one here, you're injecting power through the Ethernet cable from a PoE switch. So you need to have a switch that does it. So it's not an edge router. Edge router is just a normal router you have on your network. All right. Wireless access point does not send power through cabling, guys. A patch panel doesn't send any power. That's more for cable management than anything else. 37. After receiving a wireless router after configuring a wireless router in a small office environment, several devices cannot access the internet and receive IP addresses. They cannot access and receive IP addresses beginning with 169.254. What is the best action to resolve this problem? Restart the router, reduce the lease duration, configure the devices with static IP addresses starting with 192.168, reduce the DHCP address pool. Okay. Best answer here, guys. Hopefully you guys got this. This was a tough one. I'm going to tell you guys right now, this was not easy. But why? Andrew, why is it A? Well, let's find out, right? So the first thing I want to talk about is 169 192.168.254. So you go to a network, you plug your computer into it, or you connect to its wireless, and your computer gets a 169.254.x.x IP address. By the way, you got to know your IP address range. Know a class A, a class B, a class C. This is called the APIPA address, the automatic private IP address, APIPA, right? So you get this 169.254. This is what this means. This machine is not reaching the DHCP server. The DHCP server failed to give this machine an IP address. So let's read. Reducing the pool would cause more of this error if there is a pool. Configuring devices with static doesn't solve this, right? Configuring with static IP started. First of all, how do you know if that's even the IP address in the network? What if it's a 10.something network? What if it's a 172.30.xx network? You just can't go in the static IP addresses like that. You don't know whether that's the right address range they're using. Private IP addresses are the 10.x.x.x. It's 172.16.x.x to 172.31. So anything in that range. And remember, 192.168, this is going to be a private range, but we're not sure if it's that. Reduce the lease duration. I'm not sure how that affects this, because if you reduce the lease duration, that means the computer gives up the address a whole lot quicker. The best thing here, the best action, just give it a reboot. And that way it's forced to then give out IP addresses again. That would be the best answer in this particular one. 38. A customer reports degraded network performance. Network performance. What hardware component is most likely causing this issue? So you got to know your acronyms, right? Is it your central processing unit, your network interface card, your hard disk drive, or your random access memory? See, if you know the acronym, it's really easy, right? Because they're talking about memory. They're talking about network here. So if you have really bad network performance, check your NIC card. Easy one. 39. A support technician receives a report that a user added a new device to the network using identical configuration settings from an existing workstation. While both systems are powered on, neither can reliably access network resources. What is the most likely cause? The new computer has a duplicate IP. The DNS server is registered in both host names. The network cable has improper termination. The switch port security requires a reset. Guys, this is an easy one. You never ever do this. And you use an identical configuration. Probably have a duplicate IP here. Notice, so you cannot have two of the same computers on a network with the same IP address. If you have that, the machines will kick each other off and they won't be able to access resources. So you don't want that. Computers on the network will generally have the same DNS. It'll have the same default gateway, same subnet, but never the same IP. Now, even if the DNS servers register in both host names, they should still be able to get their resources. If the network cable has improper termination, then that machine wouldn't be able to access the network. A switch port security, then that machine wouldn't be able to access. The other one could. Notice, neither can reliably access network. So they're probably coming up and down, they're conflicting each other. A, best answer. 40. A technician must verify that desktop computers can be deployed to a globally distributed remote workforce. What specification requires validation? Input voltage compatibility, BIOS language, supply chain security, power efficient rating. So when you have a desktop computer with a desktop power supply, if you take that power supply to Europe, we're in the United States, you must have a power supply with a little switch that goes between the 110 and the 220 voltage. So you got to make sure that you switch the button from generally the 110 or 120 to like the 220 on the back of the power supply. That's a common thing. Not all desktops has this. Generally, when you buy the power supply, if you're going to be moving the desktops around the world, you got to make sure you have this. The BIOS language is not going to stop the machine from booting. Supply chain security, I'm not sure how that affects this here, the verified desktop. Power efficient rating, it's a desktop. It really doesn't have a power efficient rating. It's more of a laptop thing. By the way, are you enjoying this video? Are you enjoying the work I did here? Can you click the like button? Would be amazing. Thank you for that. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to tell a friend also. And tell another friend. 41. A company deploys virtual server machines in a public cloud. What cloud service model does this represent? Platform. X means anything as a service. Infrastructure, software as a service. Best answer here. Notice they're doing virtual machines, a virtual server. They're pushing out their own server into the cloud, making it a infrastructure service. Platform as a service is when the provider gives you the machines themselves. They give you the virtual machines. They control the virtual machine. They control the operating system. They control the server software. Software as a service, you're just getting access to an application. You ain't got no server here. Infrastructure, they're just giving you the underlying base to run your virtual machines. We can see the best answer. Anything as a service is actually all those choices. The X is a variable for platform as a service, infrastructure, software as a service. 42. A customer wants to install a new network printer and reports previous printers experience intermediate connectivity problems. What should the technician configure on a new printer to prevent this issue? Gateway IP, DHCP IP address, static IP, public IP address. All right, notice a new network printer reports previous printer experience intermediate connectivity problems here. So what are we going to do, guys, to prevent this issue? Now, when you are doing a printer, guys, it is always best to use a static IP address. Here's why. Or at least, I think one of the questions earlier we had about reserving an IP in the DHCP. Here's why. You see, notice it says intermediate connectivity. That's the point here, you see, because that means sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. If the IP changes on the printer, so let's say today the IP is 192.168.10.1, and tomorrow it changes to 10.2 or next week 10.5, then the printer is going to keep coming up and down on or offline, making A the best answer. Well, how should you configure the new printer? Printers should generally have a static IP. Printers should never have public IP addresses because they don't need to be on the public internet by themselves. DHCP, you don't want to give a printer a DHCP address. If the address keeps changing, then no one can get to the printer. That's probably what's happening here. A gateway IP just gives it internet access. Technically, a printer technically doesn't need internet access, unless for some reason it needs to go out on the internet for some reason. 43. Stop right here. Stop right here. Make sure you review the DNS records. In the course, I show you guys the DNS server. I show you guys these records. I had questions like these on my exam. Please know your DNS records and know the purpose of them. There's a table in the slides that I give you in the course. Make sure to review that. Which DNS record type would an administrator modify to redirect email traffic flow? Notice, modify to redirect email traffic flow. MX record, text record, SPF records, CNAME records. Best answer here is MX record. So the MX record, or the mail exchange record, this is done in order to control the mail server. So the MX record points to your email server. TXT is generally done for security and verifying servers. The SPF record, this is also for email security records, sender policy framework. Chronological name is used to give your give IP addresses or give domains different names. 44. What configuration would prevent a virtual machine from communicating with any network endpoints or internet resource? A VDI, private cloud, sandbox, type 1 hypervised. Notice, prevent a virtual machine from communicating with any or internet resource. So what would stop a virtual machine from accessing basically a network resource, a sandbox? So when you build a sandbox environment, nothing gets out of the sandbox. Nothing can leave the sandbox. So a sandbox locks the computer into that particular setting or that particular network. This is a virtual desktop. This is going to allow it to access anywhere in the world. A private cloud is within the organization, but notice, without any network endpoints or internet resources. A private cloud, it still has internet access. Type 1 hypervisor is just how you would set up machines. It has really nothing to do with accessing internet or network endpoints. Sandbox is what does that. 45. Which cloud deployment model exclusively uses a local data center owned by an organization? It's an easy one, right? Easy one. Private, public, hybrid, community. Best answer, guys, is private. Private cloud is when the organization generally owns or utilizes a data center that they control, or data center, sometimes even they own it. Big companies have private clouds. Make it A the best answer. Anybody can use it in a public. A hybrid is a combination of private, public, and community. And a community is used by multiple organizations. 46. A customer operates multiple bare metal servers running Windows, Linux, and Unix operating system. They want to consolidate servers while addressing concerns about data privacy and recurring costs. What should a technician recommend? Infrastructure servers, containers, type 2 hypervisors, virtual desktops, type 1 hypervisor. Now, you got to choose more than one answer here. I made this more difficult than it would be on the test, because on the exam, all right, you might not get all of these choices. All right. Generally, they give you 4 choices. The only time you'll have 5 choices is when you choose multiple answers. So, best answer here, guys, is type 1. Why? Well, notice they want to if they're concerned about data privacy and recurring costs, they don't want infrastructure as a service. Infrastructure as a service is a cloud-based thing. They're going to have to pay for every single month, or at least on usage. Containers are basically like virtual machines, but they have the underlying core of the same. These can't work because they have a Windows core, a Linux, and a Unix core. So that containers can't work. Type 2 hypervisors. Type 2 are not bare metal. Type 2 is on top of an operating system. They need servers. This is virtual desktop. This is more for users to access desktop. What they want is a type 1 hypervisor like VMware, ESX, or something like that in order to install all these machines on a single giant box. Make an E best answer. 47. Following a firewall configuration update, a technician investigates internet connectivity problems. Users report they can successfully access local network resources, including printers and shared photos, but cannot reach any internet site. What configuration setting is most likely causing this problem? Static IP, default gateway, subnet mask, or VLAN. Notice the question says, can successfully access local resources. That means the IP addressing within the network is probably okay, but they can't reach any internet, so they can't get out of the network, which means the default gateway is off. A static IP assignment doesn't cause if it was a problem, if they assigned the wrong static IP, they wouldn't be able to access network resources. If the subnet mask or the VLANs were off, none of this would work. If you can't get out to the internet, it's because the default gateway points to the router. It means that they're not sending the traffic to the right router, making B best answer. 48. A help desk technician examines a laptop keyboard where a single key has stopped functioning. Single key. After checking for debris under the key, what action should the technician take for the most cost-effective troubleshooting approach? Replace the keyboard. That's not cost-effective. Replace the switch, the key switch. The circuit board. That's a whole motherboard. Replace the key cap. Okay. So I'm not gonna do A. I ain't doing C. You know, the key switch. This is the underneath it. Not the best thing. Let's go with the key cap. The key cap is when you look at a keyboard. It's just that little cap right on top of the key at the bottom itself. The key switch at the bottom. Best answer here is D. This is more cost effective. And they check for debris. You know what to do. Maybe there's something where the key cap is not hidden the key switch really well. So do D first. All right, that's the most, this is the cheapest option that may work. 49. An employee working remotely attempts to reset their expired domain password. That means they're logged into their domain. They're logged into the workstation and they're in a domain. Using Alt Control Delete, but receive an error message stating configuration cannot be read from the domain controller because the machine is unavailable or access denied. What action will resolve this? Restart the computer. Connect to the VPN. Reset the account in Active Directory. Join the Wi-Fi network. This one has two good answers. Notice, they're working remotely is the key here. To reset their expired password but receives that configuration cannot be read. They cannot get to the domain controller. That's the problem here. If they can't get to the domain controller, they can't reset their password, but they're working remotely. What's most likely the answer? Well, when you work remotely, you generally have a VPN or a virtual private network. You connect to this VPN in order to access resources at your workplace. That includes the domain controller, which is going to allow you to reset your password. You restarting it doesn't rejoin the VPN. You're resetting the account in Active Directory. If this user is not connected to your network through the VPN, this isn't going to help. Joining the Wi-Fi network, even if you join the Wi-Fi, you would have no network connectivity at all. So the best answer, reconnect the VPN. Number 50, and we're at the halfway point. You know, guys, my back is hurting, my leg is hurting. It would be really helpful if we ease the pain by giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel and telling a friend about it would be amazing. Question 50. A computer displays insufficient storage errors when installing an application and the user reports application loads slowly. What replacement component would best resolve both issues? SSD, USB, HDD, RAM. So installing applications, remember, applications are stored on your hard drives, right? But notice it loads slowly. So get rid of that old clunky hard drive and replace it with a solid state. Whether it's a SATA solid state, it's an NVMe, PCI Express solid state, get one of those. That'll drastically speed it up. You generally don't install applications on your USB or your RAM. 51. During network connectivity troubleshooting, a technician executes ipconfig in a command prompt and observes the computer has a 169.254.0.6. What type of IP address assignment is this? Reservation, dynamic assignment, self-assignment, static assignment. Now, I went over this with you guys, and I told you guys that when you have 192.164.x.x, the answer is going to be, this is correct, it is a self-assigning IP address. All right, I need some water. Pause the video. All right, what was I saying? So when you have an IP address of 169.254.0.6, or anything with 192.254.x.x, that means that the computer hasn't reached the DHCP server. The machine is set to obtain address automatically, but it has not reached a DHCP server yet. Or a DHCP server has not sent it an IP address. So the computer is like, you know what, I'm just going to give my own self an IP address. That's where that comes in. It's not a static assignment, it's a self-assignment. The DHCP server was never met, so it's not A and it's not B, because a reservation assignment is basically B. It's a dynamic assignment from a server. Next question, 52. For a desktop computer where large storage capacity at low cost is the priority and read speed performance is not a concern, which storage option should a technician recommend? The 750 GB, the 2x 1 TB PCIe, 2 TB SATA, 4 TB SAS. Best answer here, guys, is going to be, you got to read the question carefully to make sure you get the requirements. So the best answer here, guys, is going to be C. This is correct. Notice what it says. Low cost. First of all, a SATA drive is way cheaper than a SSD, especially 2 1 terabytes in a RAID 1. This is technically 1 terabyte because it's a mirror, right? So this doesn't have a lot of storage. And this is expensive. You're buying 2 1 terabytes. An NVMe drive, a 2 terabyte SATA, is much cheaper than a almost 1 terabyte NVMe M.2 drive. This is super expensive. This is 15,000 RPM hard disk drive. These are SAS drive. These are used on servers to connect like multiple drives and big arrays. That's too expensive. Best answer here is C. Notice they're not concerned about how fast the read-write speeds are. That's how fast the drive spins at the 5400 RPM. Make C the best answer. What laptop technology uses specialized laptop ports to expand the available connection beyond the laptop's built-in ports, as well as provide additional features? NFC, docking station, port replicator, USB dongle. I had a question just like this on the exam. Make sure you know the difference between docking stations and port replicators. So it's not an NFC adapter. That's going to give it that near-field communication for it to do like Google payments. You don't need that on a laptop. Keep it on your phone. A USB dongle. USB dongles are used to authenticate devices. That's not what this is. You need to add more ports. A port replicator generally just adds additional ports that your laptop may have, just generally more USB ports. A docking station comes with additional things. Not only will it give you more things like a USB port, but it gives you other functionality, like to connect multiple types of monitors, or maybe a NIC card built into them, or high-speed NIC cards. So it's not just replicating the ports that's on your laptop. It gives you much more functionality in a docking station. Port replicators can cost $30-40. Docking stations, a few $100. There's a huge difference between them. Know them for your exam. 54. What tool would a technician use to attach a wire connectors to an RJ45 connector? In the course, you saw me go through all of those network cable with you. I showed you the connectors, and I went out and I bought all those cables to show you demonstration. So check them out. Make sure you know the connectors, because to connect an RJ45 head to a cable, you should be using a crimper is the correct thing. Now, if you actually want to know how to do that, how to use a crimper to make your own network cable, and you finish this course, you finish A+, take my Network Plus. I have hands-on with that. A cable stripper, this basically cuts the jacket off of the cable. A punch-down tool, it punches it down to punch-down block. Cable organization. A loop-back plug tests the NIC card port. Tests basically the NIC card to see if it can send and receive data. 55. A technician working on a RAID 1 array. By the way, make sure you know the difference between 0, 1, and 5, I think is what the exam covers most. And a 6, double parity. Works on a RAID 1 array showing degraded status. All right. After confirming RAM and power are functionally normal, what steps should you take to further isolate the problem? Perform individual drive diagnostics. All right. Run the check this F command, rebuild the RAID array, reconfigure the RAID as a RAID 0. Okay, it's degraded. When a RAID system degrades, it means one of the drives is dead. The question is, which drive is dead? Perform an individual drive diagnostic. See which drive in the array is not functional well. That would be A. B, check this. You don't want to check the operating system or anything like that to see the partitioning or check the OS. This is a physical hardware problem. That's not going to help you with that. Rebuild the array after you replace the failed drive. Reconfigure it to 0. You still need at a minimum 2 disks to do a RAID 0. This is one of the drive is dead. Making A the best answer. A company wants to configure a RAID array that can tolerate multiple simultaneous drive failure while maintaining data redundancy. Which RAID configuration should they implement? 0, 1, 5, and 6. The answer here is going to be 6. So 6 maintains double parity bits, allowing up to 2 drives to fail. It's basically like a RAID 5, except that it has double parity bits and it allows multiple drive failures. With a RAID 5, you can only have 1 drive failure. A RAID 1 is a mirror, generally 1 failure, and a RAID 0, any kind of failure on a RAID 0, the entire RAID will fail, as it has no redundancy, but it does have speed. 57. A technical support specialist is diagnosing an issue with an all-in-one laser printing device. User reports that a consistent vertical strip appears on the output when they scan or copy. However, documents sent to the print and incoming fax transmission do not exhibit this defect. Interesting. What component should the specialist investigate to identify the root cause? So let me get this straight. When they print our incoming faxes, they don't get this strip. Only when they copy or scan, you get a strip. Paper feed mechanism, charging wire, scan and glass, imaging drum. What are you guys going with? Tough question, right? It's actually pretty easy. I'll show you why. So, if they print normally and no strip is coming out, the pickup rollers ain't the problem because it's the same paper. Whether they scan or they print, the pickup roller is picking up the same paper, same tray. The charging wire obviously is working because it's making an image. It doesn't matter whether that image is coming from the scan, the copy, or a network request. The imaging drum. Well, if the imaging drum wasn't working, it doesn't matter whether they were printing from a fax, a print, or a scanner. So in other words, if the paper feed, the charging wire, and the imaging drum weren't functional, it didn't matter whether they were printing or whether they were network printing or they were faxing or they were scanning, it wouldn't have worked. Right? The only difference here is this scanning glass. What I'm talking about, you know the glass where you put the paper on, there's a glass that you put your paper on, and then the scanner comes and scanning. That's what I'm talking about. There's probably something that's a very small that they really can't see on the glass. I've seen this. I have a big dog in my house, and if her hair gets on there, you can see it on the paper sometimes. Yeah, she sheds a lot. She's like a golden retriever, so they got a lot of hair. So the scanning glass. That's why it's that. Tough question though. 58. Which cable type can transmit both data and video signal through a single cable? USB-C, HDMI, DisplayPort, VGA. This is a trick question. I did this one with my students before, and almost everybody got it wrong. Best answer? Here's why. Now, a lot of people defaulted to HDMI. VGA is video only. That's more analog. DisplayPort is digital video, but it doesn't do any kind of audio. HDMI is video and audio, not data and video. Data and video is USB. HDMI is video and audio, not data. USB-C is data and video. Trick question. This one, trust me, when I first saw it, my team made up these questions. When I first saw it, I was like, HDMI. Then I read it again. Oh no, it says data. It's A. 59. What type of RAM is specifically designed to detect and correct memory errors within the modules itself? These are going to be used in servers. So it's not dual inline memory module. Those are normal RAM chips. It's dual channel, increases the speed of your memory. Error, ECC, error correcting. That is the answer. SODIMM is small outline. So SODIMM is used in laptops. Best answer, guys, is going to be the error correcting RAM. This is what we put into servers. In case there's any kind of errors in the server, this would be able to detect it. Number 60. A technician needs to relocate a workstation to a different logical network segment. What technology should the technician use? Notice, relocate to a different logic. So you want a different logical segment. DHCP, VLAN, DNS, VPN. What is going to allow us to segment our network? And then the answer is a VLAN. VLANs allows us to segment your network, and this is going to be done on a managed switch. So you would have a network for all your employees separated, such as your finance network, your accounting network, your sales network, and you're going to separate them by VLAN. Remember that when you go work in your organizations. DHCP doesn't separate, it gives out IP address. DNS doesn't separate networks, translates domain names to IP address. VPN allows you to connect remote network or remote users together. All right, you know, I'm getting really tired. My back is really beginning to kill me now. I'm old and I'm fat. And if you guys appreciate me dealing with this pain just to help you pass your exam, you'll give the video a like. That would be useful. Thank you for that. Question 61. After installing a new motherboard, a computer fails to start and does not complete the post. The technician verified the power supply functions correctly and the CPU is properly installed. What should you do next? Flash the BIOS, check the CMOS memory, reseat the RAM, reinstall the old motherboard. So I went over this earlier. You got to understand what post looks for. Post is basically going to look for your power supply. It's going to look for your CPU, and it's going to look for your RAM. He already checked the power supply, right? Next thing you want to do, you want to verify. He already checked the CPU, so check the RAM. So if you flash the BIOS, this is not really going to help here because the BIOS didn't even get started yet. The BIOS, the CMOS battery, it'll post without the battery on, by the way. Reinstall the old motherboard. Before you do that, let's reseat the RAM, right? What should you do next? Not just take out the whole motherboard. Let's go ahead and do next thing here. Let's reseat the RAM. Quick tip. When the exam says what to do next or what you should do first, I want you guys to keep in mind that don't take a drastic step. Keep that tip. If it seems like when it says next and you're taking this huge action to undo everything you did, or it's a lot of steps, never do that first. Always do the super simple stuff first. May you can see the best answer. 62. What's the advantage of implementing a VDI in an organization? Authentication is not required on a domain. Licensing costs are minimized. Less configuration is needed for each. A virus is automatically contained. No. So virtual desktops, environments, and infrastructures, a VDI, right, allows you to have a central server where you store everybody's desktops. Basically, it's a box with a whole bunch of virtual machines on it. This allows you to copy, paste, and clone these virtual machines just like this. This allows less configuration is needed for each. Basically, you can configure one virtual desktop and clone it and then give everybody these clones. Just change the unique ID on them. Licensing costs are still the same. Every one of those VDIs needs a Windows license. Authentication, you always, doesn't matter what it is, need authentication. A virus is contained? No. A virus can spread amounts to VDI. They're basically a network themselves. 63. A user cannot access secure work applications on their tablet when working remotely a few days per week, but the application functions normally in the office. What service most likely needs reconfiguration to enable remote work? GPS, MDM, WPA, NFC. Best answer, notice. The tablet, when working remotely a few days per week, it functions normally in the office. Interesting. So let's take a look at this. Tablets are basically big phones. When you connect a phone to an organization, they use a software called Mobile Device Managers or Management in order to keep a track of these devices. They can lock them down, they enable encryption, they can deny or allow certain apps. The MDM software allows them to control the phone. Notice it says secure work applications. In other words, when they're in the office, they're connected to the MDM that's allowing them to access the app. When they leave, they don't have access to the MDM anymore, and it just doesn't allow it to work. A GPS just says where it is. WPA, Wi-Fi protected access, that's the encryption. And WPA is not good. You should use at least WPA 3. WPA 2 or 3. NFC, this is near field communication. This is wireless for like authentication here. This is a tablet trying to do with an application. The best thing here is MDM. All right, 64. You did not see that. Didn't see that. It's a good question. A system administrator deploys BitLocker encryption to all devices, but one desktop computer cannot encrypt its boot drive. What should the administrator verify first? Notice, BitLocker encryption to all devices. In order to make BitLocker, so BitLocker is Microsoft's software that does drive encryption. But if you remember, in encryption, you need to have a cryptographic key. Where do you store the cryptographic key? Well, they're stored in the TPM chip. The Trusted Platform Module is a chip in your computer that will store the cryptographic key. You can also use a USB key if you want to have like a mobile BitLocker key management, but you always need that TPM chip. BitLocker does not depend on, you can have it, doesn't matter the CPU, doesn't matter RAM, doesn't matter hard drive, but you need a TPM chip in order to make the BitLocker encryption work. Remember that for your exam. 65. A user connects a laptop to a conference room projector and reports the projected image appearing smaller at the bottom than at the top. After restarting the laptop on reconnecting the cable without resolving the issue, what should the technician do? Replace the HDMI cable, power cycle, adjust the keystone, increase the resolution. In the course, I did a whole video on this. If you watch the video in the section about troubleshooting the projector, I show you as I pick up the projector and I move it up and down, the image, which should be stable, should have, a nice rectangle, turns to like a trapezoid, which goes in at the top or goes in at the bottom, right? That's called a keystone. You can go into the projector and adjust it. So if the image is like this, when you adjust the keystone, you can bring it out and make it nice and rectangular again. So remember this for your exam. I saw 2 questions on my actual exam that talked about keystone. That's why I went back and I filmed the whole video on this one for your test. So make sure you know it. 66. A company with a main office and 20 branch offices want a backup internet connection for redundancy if the primary fiber connection fails. Without building new infrastructure, what should they use? Cable, cellular, DSL, storage area network. So one of them is not really even a network connection, internet connection. SAN. I can tell you guys, it's not that. So is it cable, is it DSL, or is it cellular? Without building new infrastructure, keyword. If they bring cable connections or DSL, cable connection will need new coax cable. DSL will need new telephone cable in order for that to work. Cellular is basically wireless. As long as there were cell towers there, they would be able to connect, making that the best option of these 4. 67. Which drive type interface is typically used in server system, but not in consumer desktops? NVMe, SAS, SATA, PCIe, and the answer is a SAS drive. Now, SAS drive is mostly used on enterprise servers where they have massive arrays, 8 drives, 10 drives, 18 drives, servers. It allows you to have a lot of drives attached to it, and it supports a very high speed. In other words, the disk spins very quickly. NVMe, a lot of our desktop computer has this. When I built the gaming machine, in fact, when I built the office, in the course, we did 2 machines, right? We did the office machine when I explained all the hardware, and then I did the gaming machine. They all had PCIe. Almost every computer comes with SATA connections, and NVMe and PCIe is basically the interface into this. Basically, the connection technology, almost every machine has PCIe technology. Not every machine supports SAS, though. That's mostly on a server. 68. What configuration should a user implement to maximize memory bandwidth when building a high-end gaming computer? So when I built my gaming machine, we did something, right? Is it error checking, RAM voltage, channel configuration, physical module size? Well, first of all, D doesn't matter, right? It's the type of RAM determines the physical module size. Error correction is mostly a server thing because they have so many requests coming in. If there's any kind of error or ECC RAM, if there's any kind of error in the applications or in the memory, it'll be able to correct it in the chip. You generally don't adjust RAM voltage, but when you install memory and you want the maximum out of that board to get the maximum speed, the board will tell you, is it dual channel, triple channel RAM? You got to make sure you put them into the right slots to make sure you get the right amount of speed from them. 69. Port number. Which port is commonly associated with remote desktop protocol? 137, 445, 389, 443, the answer 4443. Answer is 3389 is going to be associated with the remote desktop protocol. I don't know what 4443 is. 445, I forgot. 137. I don't think any of those are on the exam because I can't remember them. Can you put in the comment below what those are? Help me out a lot. Thank you for that. Did you click on the like button too? That would be amazing. Thank you for that too. You didn't click on the like button? Man. A user reports that their company-provided smartphone has no internet access when in the parking lot. I want you to technician check first. The LTE, 5G, SIM connection, hotspot capability, airplane mode status. Now, easy one. Notice in the parking lot. That means that it's not airplane mode. Airplane mode will block every connection. When they're in the building, they could be on Wi-Fi. When they're in the parking lot, they got to make sure to turn on their LTE or basically their cellular signal, whether it's 5G or 4G or LTE setting. SIM connection, are they talking about the SIM card? Doesn't make sense. Hotspot capability, that allows them to share internet or receive it from a hotspot. But they're in the parking lot, so make sure to turn on the cellular signal. Okay, guys, I want to just pause it right here before we move on to the next question. Just talk here for a second. We're at question 70. Most of you guys, at this point in the exam in real life, on your real exam, you probably only have about 70 questions. So everything here is kind of like a bonus, but when you grade yourself, just grade it from 1 to 100, all right? 71. A desktop computer connected to an uninterruptible power supply consistently loses its system clock settings following any electrical disturbance. What 2 actions should you take to fix this problem? Update the firmware, replace the memory modules, turn off the network time synchronization, repair the backup power source, install a new CMOS battery, add a surge protection device. Okay, so a couple things here. We notice that it is connected to a uninterruptible power supply, so a UPS. It's connected to a UPS. All right, that's important. It's going to play a big thing. And notice it's losing the system clock settings. That's going to be a big one. That's going to tell you the answer right there. Okay, number 1. It's not a firmware issue. Definitely not. Because a firmware issue, that means the machine wouldn't boot. You change firmware to have new hardware capability or to make sure hardware functions well. So it's not that. There's nothing here with the memory. If RAM is not functioning well, the entire system would get corrupted. Turn off. You don't want to turn it off. You should keep it on. It's not synchronizing the clock, guys. Why would you turn it off? If it's not on, if it's off, turn it on. Added surge protector. A surge protector would ensure it shuts down. Now, the CMOS battery. If the CMOS battery is powered out, it ran out of power. That's what's keeping the settings in the CMOS correctly. So if the CMOS battery is not functioning, every time the machine turns off, it's going to lose its clock settings and all the memory and all the configuration in the CMOS. Or in the BIOS. So what you want to do is to replace that battery. Repair the backup power source. That means that every time, even though it's connected to the UPS, it consistently loses its setting following it. That means the UPS isn't functioning somehow. Okay, so you need to fix that UPS and replace the battery so when there's an electrical problem, the system doesn't shut off. And if it does, for whatever reason, it does go off eventually, you don't lose the system clock settings. This is a tough question, but some of these answers didn't make sense. Like memory had nothing to do with system clock. Firmware has nothing to do with the system clock. This, you should turn it on. It's the opposite. And a surge suppression device doesn't keep machines on. Card easy, maybe. 72. Every day for a week, when a user turns on their computer, the system time is incorrect. The technician corrects the time, and the issue reoccurs. What is most likely the problem? So I add this one in because I want to show you guys a question that I had very similar to this. Fail in NIC, misconfigured NTP settings, incorrect time zone, a faulty CMOS. Notice, you correct the timing, but the issue reoccurs. What should you do here? So the best thing here is this CMOS battery. Now, I added this because I wanted to talk a little bit more about this. In the course, I tell you guys, I've been repairing computers, guys. I built I took apart my first computer in 1997. I've been building all my computers basically since 1999. I've supported thousands of machines over my career. I have never had to replace a CMOS battery. But CompTIA believes that these things die quick. I've never really seen them die. If you have ever seen a CMOS battery die, put in the comments below. I would like to know that because I've never really seen a CMOS battery die. Generally, the machine becomes obsolete and you threw them out before the CMOS battery died. Maybe I'm old. Maybe I just replace machines too often to notice them. But remember, the CMOS battery keeps the BIOS settings, which is the timer, which includes the system timer and any BIOS configuration. Keeps the settings there. This is time zone. They're talking the entire time, not just the time zone. This one was interesting. Misconfigured NTP settings. That means that it's syncing to the wrong clock. This one wasn't a bad answer. But notice, you correct the time. That means it technically should have corrected that. A NIC card, this has nothing to do with a network here. 73. A company subscribed to cloud services to provide email for its employees. What cloud service model is the company adapting? Platform, software, data, or desktop, depending on whichever company you're looking at. Infrastructure is easy one. Email would be things like Gmail, Microsoft Office 365. Those are considered software as a service. And software as a service is basically an application that you would just use on the actual computer itself. Think Gmail once again. So that's a software as a service. Platform as a service is when they give you an entire machine. Desktop as a service, technically VDI is a desktop as a service. We explained that earlier. And infrastructure service, no, platform as a service, I said that, I mixed them up. Platform as a service is when they give you the operating system and the server software. And infrastructure as a service, you have to bring your own virtual machines on there. 74. A user tests a new operating system contained on a USB drive and wants to load it automatically when the computer turns on. What should the user configure? BIOS password, TPM, USB permission, boot options. Best answer here, guys, is going to be, notice he has it on a USB stick. He wants to load it up. Boot options. So if you go in to your BIOS, you would change the boot option and the boot order to boot from the USB stick. A BIOS password doesn't change the boot order. The TPM is about drive encryption. USB permissions is not something you'd see in a BIOS per se. Change the boot option to boot from the USB stick. 75. A technician sets up a locally hosted environment for internal developers needing simultaneous access to multiple test operating systems. What solution best fulfills this requirement? Hypervisor, SaaS platform, multi-boot server, or sandbox. Notice, locally hosted environment for internal development testing needing simultaneous access to multiple test operating system. Multiple test operating system. What fulfills this? Well, you need a hypervisor. Basically, you need virtualization, guys. All right, virtualization. A SaaS platform does not give them access to operating systems. That's applications. Multiple boot. Multi-boot is when you can boot, when the machine has like two operating systems and you can boot to like Windows 7 or and then you can boot to Windows 8, or then you can boot to Windows 10. But you can only boot to one at a time. This is simultaneous. Sandbox, when ensure it has no access and they can't test anything. So hypervisor, just plain old virtualization. 76. An employee screen regularly flashes and sometimes the picture disappears, then returns. The employee confirms the device is fully plugged in. What should the technician check first? Loose video cable, failing graphics card, conflicting drivers, swollen motherboard capacitor. First, choose the simplest thing here. Don't go crazy. Like a motherboard swollen capacitor? The first thing you want to do, notice, regularly flashes, then disappear. They confirm the device is fully plugged in. Yeah, it's plugged in all the way, but is it screwed in? Remember when you plug in things like a DVI or a VGA, you got to screw it in there. You got to make sure it's really in there. Check to make sure the cable is not loose. In the monitor, the back of the machine, that's the easiest thing. A failing video card, I'm not even exactly sure how you would test that. you'd probably have to run some kind of software. If it fails, it fails. Conflicting drivers, it wouldn't happen intermediately. It wouldn't come and go. If you had bad drivers, it just wouldn't work right off. So on a motherboard capacitor, this is too much work. I don't know. You can see them if they're going bad. And generally, you don't replace capacitors, you just replace the board. 77. An organization issues smartphones to employees for international business travel. A worker brings their device to IT support for configuration to work with foreign carriers. The technician discovers the phone has no slot for physical components. What technology enables connectivity with international provider? The phone has no slot for physical components. eSIM, USB-C, SD card, MDM. So you want to make it work. They're doing international business travel. They want to work with foreign carriers. To make a phone work on another carrier, you need a SIM card. And nowadays, we have eSIMs. So my phone has an eSIM, right? So it does have a normal SIM tray, but a lot of phones nowadays has eSIMs. In other words, an electronic SIM that you can just go to other countries and just basically, they send a link to your phone, you download the software and it updates the SIM card in your phone. That would be an eSIM. To connect to different networks, it's not a USB-C or an SD card. It's a SIM card. MDM allows them to control the phone, but in order to get onto a carrier network, you need a SIM card. 78. Ooh, you did not see that. Did not see that. Okay. To enhance remote access security, which port should it... such a good one. I'm not going to stop the video, guys. I'm too tired. Did you click on the like button? By the way, you know what? I did that purposely because I felt bad for you. I know you're having a hard time. I know it's been tough. I wanted to give you one free one. Right? I did that purposely. Continue the video. To enhance remote access security, which port should a technician disable? Okay, you want to enhance security. What port should you do? So the answer here is Telnet. Notice remote access security. So when you are thinking remote access, there's two ways to remotely control a computer from a command prompt. Either you're going to use SSH or you're going to use Telnet. Telnet is a text prompt with no encryption. SSH is port 22. The secure shell basically is a much more secure and it's fully encrypted. So you want unencrypted or encrypted. Port 53 is DNS. That has nothing to do with remote access. 25 is sending emails. That has nothing to do with remote access. But this does. That's SSH. And this is Telnet. Do not use Telnet. You should disable that. They can be the correct. You guys can thank me for the free one. By the way, if you like this free one, because I gave you guys this free one, did you click on the like button yet? And if you did, don't click it again, please. I did that purposely to help, to give you something so you can help me back with something. Would be amazing. 79. What connection type provides maximum bandwidth with identical upload and download? If you have something like the Verizon Fios, hint the answer is C. If you have a fiber internet connection like I do, the Fios, generally you get symmetric up and down. DSL was an asymmetric line. Generally the down was like 1.5 megs and the upload was like 150K. Cellular, generally much different down and up. Satellite, generally huge difference between up and down. Fiber gives you that symmetric, generally same up, same down. 80. An organization needs maximum read performance for locally stored data at minimal costs. What configuration achieves this? RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, or RAID 10? Best answer, guys, is going to be, notice, locally stored, minimal cost, maximum read, RAID 0. What they're not asking me for here is redundancy. 1, 5, and 10. 10 is a combination of 1 and 0. These three options have redundancy. This is a mirror stripping. This is basically a striped mirror is a RAID 10. So RAID 0 gives you 2 drives, maximum speed, strips the data across multiple hard drives, but it has no redundancy and it does come at minimal cost. Why? Because if you have 1 terabyte, you get 3 terabytes worth of storage. So no redundancy, but high speeds, minimal cost. 81. Which network device can implement access controllers? PoE injector, managed switch, firewall, DSL, modem. Pretty easy one. Notice an access control list can control basically what traffic can come in and out of a network. And the moment I said that, you should have known, oh, that's a firewall. PoE switch, basically, PoE injector sends power through Ethernet lines. A managed switch controls VLAN. DSL modem is to connect the DSL connection. This is the internet connection. That's a throw-out answer. Best answer here, guys, is a firewall. Almost all firewalls has ACLs in them that says what traffic can come in and out of your network or computer. 82. Which protocol should an organization implement for automated clock synchronization? Easy one, DHCP, UTM, NTP, AAA. Best answer here, guys, is going to be the network time protocol. Now, the network time protocol is going to use to synchronize clocks across your network. This one gives out IP addresses. AAA, that's more for authentication, authorization, accountability. That's a whole different thing, all right? And UTM, no, the best answer here, guys, network time protocol. You have this on your machine. This is what synchronizes and ensure all clocks across the world has the same time. 83. What cloud characteristics allow automatic resource adjustment responding to changing workload demands? All right. Make sure you know your cloud characteristics. This is one of the objectives. Availability, scalability, multi-tenancy, and elasticity. So I'm going to explain all this here to you guys. So let's go with the first one, availability. So availability means that the cloud is always accessible. It's always available when needed. And it means that it's available everywhere. The good thing with the cloud is if you put data in like Dropbox, you can access it anywhere in the world as long as you have an internet connection. Availability. Scalability for organizations is important. This allows you to scale up, which means that maybe you only need 1 server now, but then you need 2 servers more. You have 1 gigabit worth of data, but then you need 4 gigabit worth of data transfer. It can scale up. You can scale it as needed. You can add resources as needed. Now, multi-tenancy is when there are multiple people utilizing the same cloud service. For example, Amazon Prime runs in the Amazon cloud, and so does Netflix. 2 people, 2 tenants in the same network. Multi-tenancy. Elasticity. Notice. Adjustments responding to changing workload demands. Automatic resource adjustment. Elasticity allows you, it's coming into scalability, but what elasticity does is it allows you not just to scale up and stay there, but it allows you to expand your resource needs and then contract it. For example, in the morning, your website may get a ton of traffic. So the cloud can scale up how much bandwidth it's giving you, how much RAM you have. It can scale it up, expands it. In the nighttime, you don't need all that. You don't need that much RAM. You don't need all that much bandwidth. You don't need all that CPU. Contracts it. That's elasticity. When you think elastic, think of a rubber band. Expands and contracts, making D better than B. 84. Which tool helps locate where an Ethernet cable connects in a patch panel? Oh, I've done this a lot. It's a pain. When you have a lot of network cable and you have to find out, okay, this cable, like this jack on this wall, where in the big bunch of cables does it terminate to? Like this cable here, right? This port connects is what cable in the patch panel? Well, a crimper is going to be used to put the head on the cable. A punch down tool gets the cable into the punch down panel. A wire stripper removes the jack of the toner probe. This is known as the fox and the hound. Tone generator, tone locator. So these things here allow you to find network cable. In the course, I show you one of these things. So make sure, watch the videos so you see what they look like. 85, oh darn, you did not see that. You know what? That's another free one for you guys that didn't click on the like button. I know, you guys are like, Andrew, you gave us the answer already. I had to do it because They didn't click on the like button. I'm trying to bring up their scores. A smartphone screen shows no response to touch input. Physical inspection reveals no visible damage. Restarting the device doesn't resolve the problem. What components should the technician examine next? Battery, display panel, stylus, digitizer. So this is important to know for your exam. I had a question on this where the answer was digitizer. On devices like this, the stylus is just a pen, right? This is the stylus, right? The thing that makes the touch screen function, that makes the stylus work on the touch screen, that's the digitizer. That's the touch screen sensitivity layer on top of the actual screen that allows it to accept input. It's not a battery. Remember, physical inspection reveals no visible damage, and it doesn't respond to touch. So something is going on. It's not the stylus. The display panel, it doesn't say anything is wrong with the display. It doesn't say it's running out of battery, making D the best answer. 86. A laptop connects successfully to the office network. However, placing the laptop near industrial motors on a factory floor results in a complete loss of connectivity. What causes this? Packet jitter, inadequate signal strength, electromagnetic interference, network latency. This is common. In massive industrial factories, there is electromagnetic interference in these coming out of these industrial machines that causes interference to the wireless signal. So you want to make sure that in these kinds of settings, you may have additional access points, or you're going to have to realize, you know what, nothing works here because of the massive electromagnetic interference coming out of these machines. So something to think about, especially when building wireless networks in factories. Packet jitter, that's going up and down. Notice it says, however, placing them in a complete loss. So it's not a jitter. It's not an inadequate signal strength, although it could be, but it does point out and say factory floor. Latency would slow it down, but it wouldn't be a complete loss. 87. Which interface is an NVMe drive? Is it an M.2 interface? Is it a 3.5? Is it a spindle? Is it a Molex power connector? Well, NVMe are the non-volatile memory. These are M.2 slots. All right, so M.2 slots, you have the PCI M.2s, you have the SATA M.2s. These M.2 slots, almost all of these NVMEs are going to be M.2 slots. In the course, both of the machines we build utilizes an NVMe. An external enclosure, this is for an external 3.5-inch hard drive. This is the RPM, the speed of a regular hard drive. They're talking solid state here. Molex are for old IDE hard drives, not used anymore. 88. What connector type terminates coaxial cable for residential internet service? I do show you this in the course. Make sure you know your cable heads. DB9, ST, F-type, RJ45. So here we have the older coax. This is fiber coaxial for your house. And RJ45 is going to be for your Ethernet cable. 89. Multiple users in one office report VoIP phone calls with choppy audio, dropouts, and delayed speech. Internet tests on both wired and wireless show normal bandwidth throughout the location. What should resolve call quality? QoS, enable QoS on the router, configure PoE on the switch, downgrade encryption. I don't know why you do that. Implement MAC address filtering. So here's what's happening. When you have a VoIP on your network, not all situations, but in certain situations, what starts to happen is the voice data starts to compete with the data. So voice data is trying to get through the network, and voice runs. Now, I know you guys haven't really gone into this, even in this core one, the UDP protocol. It's a UDP-based protocol, and it doesn't really reassemble or anything. It just plays it as it receives it. So what we want to do is we want to prioritize the voice data over the data, of the normal data. We want to tell your routers that, you know what, if there is voice here, make that go first and delay everything else. That's what QoS does. QoS is one of the most important things you should do when implementing VoIP and networking. Make sure you know DNS records. I think I mentioned this. Technicians needs to modify a web service IPv4 address, DNS address. What record? So at Quad A, this is for a IP version 6 Remember DNS, domain name to IP address. This is domain name to IPv6 address. This is the domain name's email address server. This is to rename, to give that host name a different name, an alternative name, a chronological name. And an A record is IPv4 to a domain name. When configuring a network connectivity for a workstation, what 3 settings must you configure? So when you want your computer to have internet, what are 3 things you need? A lot. Pause the video. Select which one you need. Boom. Answer. Not a PIPA. If you have a PIPA, you ain't getting the internet access. It means you're not getting to your DHCP server. Your default gateway gets you to your router. Your IP address identifies you. Your subnet mask tells you what network you're on. Static route, that's within the router, not on the workstation. Universal plug and play, that's for devices, not network. NAT rules, that's on your router. MAC address filtering is on your router or your wireless access point. It says for a workstation, do these 3. Technically, it should have had 4 choices. The other one you need to configure is also a DNS server, but that's not a choice here. So these 3 is the best answer. 92. A workstation powers down approximately 5 minutes after startup. The technicians here is distinct clicking from the inside of the chassis. What component should receive immediate attention? Case exhaust fan, motherboard capacitors, CPU cooling, front intake fan. Immediate attention. What am I worried about? When I turn it on, it just shuts off. You know what I would check right away? The CPU cooling fan. Now, if you remember in the course, I build them in the gaming build. If you remember, the heatsink had this massive fan on it. What I would tell you guys to do is to make sure that if that thing stops working, which means the heatsink will overheat and it'll shut the processor down and the machine will just click right off. For them to hear a clicking noise inside of the chassis, could be a hard drive if it had hard drives. If not, it's definitely a fan. The most important fan is your CPU cooling fan, because once the CPU cooling fan goes out, the machine will just shut down. Might call it to reboot, will damage your processor. Case exhaust and intake fans, it should go more than 5 minutes. If the CPU fan is working, your computer may go for hours, depending on what you're doing, before it shuts down. This is 5 minutes. That means that CPU is getting hot real fast. 93. Which cable technology uses light transmission through flexible strands to carry data? Light technology is fiber optic. Coaxial does not use light. It's copper. HDMI, Thunderbolts, these are basically all copper. The only thing here that uses strands of cable and light passes through it is a fiber optic cable. Doesn't matter whether it's single mode, in which case it can only send or receive one at a time, or it's multi-mode, it's sending and receiving. Any all fiber utilizes light. Which technology enables physical access control systems like door locks and entry gates? This is a tough one. 802.1x, VPNs, GPS, RFID. So you want to make sure you have RFID, radio frequency identification. If you have an RFID card, you can use RFID cards to get in to certain buildings or get through certain doors or entry locks. 802.1x, this is an authentication protocol in wireless or wired networking. A VPN allows you to connect to network remotely. A GPS, global positioning, this here is going to tell you where your devices are located. But to get in and out of spaces and open doors, you would have like an RFID card. Looks like a credit card that you can then place on some kind of reader to access that section. What cable standard connects monitors and displays? All right, easy question. I told this one there, easy. USB 1.1, SATA, RJ45, or the digital visual, I should say. Which cable? So when you're thinking video cables, DVI is a video cable. This is a network cable. This is a hard drive cable, and that's a USB cable. 96. An employee corporate smartphone has become swollen, no longer fits in its protective case. Oh no! How long did this guy have this phone? What should the technician do? Replace the battery, upgrade the memory, change your protective case, reset the factory defaults. You don't want to reset the factory defaults right off the bat because it's a hardware problem. It's upgrade the memory. The memory is not going to cause the device to expand. Is the battery is going bad and batteries are beginning to swell. Get that battery out of there and it should come back to normal. You don't need to replace the case. 97. What function does a firewall perform? Establish wireless connectivity, allocate network address, direct traffic within a local network, filter unauthorized traffic. So establish wireless connectivity, that's a wireless access point. Allocate network addresses, that's a DHCP server. Direct traffic within a local network, that's a switch. Filter unauthorized traffic, that is going to be a firewall. This here can stop traffic. Direct traffic within a local network is a switch. Between networks is a router. 98. A projector displays a no signal error when connected to a laptop via HDMI. What should the technician do first? Verify the projector input selection. Swap the HDMI. Address the screen resolution. Inspect the HDMI port for damage. Notice it says no signal. First, remember this? Remember I told you this thing about first? Verify the projector input selection. So on the projector, most projectors can support HDMI, VGA, DVI, right? They have a variety of ports on them. And if the projector is set to VGA, and it'll say no signal. If you plug that into the HDMI, you got to make sure you set it to HDMI. So when they say first, do something that's generally in the software versus taking apart hardware of some kind. 99. I made this one I had one very, very similar to this, man. I'm telling you. A recently purchased laptop runs extremely slowly when operating and saving documents. Extremely slowly, right? Extremely slowly when opening and saving. Specifications. It's an i5, Windows 11. It's a built-in graphics card. It is a 7200 RPM hard drive, 16 gigs of RAM. The technician believed minor upgrades. Which component? Dedicated graphics, i7, 64 gigs of RAM, 2.5 SATA SSD. This is an easy one. But if you think about it, it's not a bad processor, guys. It's an i5. They're doing documents, for God's sake, so they don't need a dedicated graphics card. The i5 is more than enough to open a Word document. 16 gigs of RAM for a Word document? Come on. The problem here is this hard drive is too slow. This hard drive, anything with a spinner hard drive, a good old-fashioned traditional hard drive that spins around is going to be a whole lot slower than any SSD. Whether it's SATA SSD is an NVMe SSD, change it to an SSD. Have you guys enjoyed this video? If you did, and you like the way I teach, and you didn't take an A+ class yet, or maybe you did already, right? Anyway, if you did enjoy the way I explain things, guys, I do have other courses, the Core 2. You can also check out my Security Plus, Net Plus. I got to do some shameless plugs and selling, right? It's a lot of work to make this. Question 100. A printer has stopped outputting documents. The user generated the print jobs from a website so they could be difficult to recreate. Remote connection shows numerous queued. Hard resetting the printer doesn't help. What's most likely the issue? What most likely fixes the issue? Restart the print spooler, clear the queue and reboot the computer, verify the printer uses PCL, apply manufacturing firmware update. So you notice it could be difficult for the printer to spool this up. When there's a problem, and expect one like this on your exam, when there's a problem where you have things piling up in the print spooler, what you need to do is go into the Services tab in your computer, just right-click the Start button, go to Manage, go to Services, find the print spooler, right-click it and say Restart the print spooler. That'll clear the entire spooler out. If you restart the printer, that's not going to help anything. Restarting the printer doesn't do anything because the spooler is not in the printer. Clearing the queue and reboot the computer. Well, you don't need to do this. Do this first. All right? Technically, rebooting the computer does do this, but this is probably going to solve the issue. Verify the printer name. It probably has the right drivers, and there's nothing here that says the printer is technically functionally incorrect. Guys, this ended our video on 100 questions. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the video. If you didn't give the video a like, please give the video a like. Subscribe to the channel. We have more of these videos coming up. If you want me to do more like this, leave a comment below. If you guys want me to do one on the performance-based questions, leave a comment below. And don't forget, if you're studying for your A+ and you took a class and it wasn't very good, or you want my class, it's really cheap. I put some coupons below for Udemy access and our on-site, on our site also. I put some coupons to make it really affordable. In fact, for the price of 3 or 4 of these bottles of water, you can probably get my entire course. I also put a link below to more practice questions. We have another course that's just practice questions. Check all the links below. With that in mind, guys, good luck on your exam. If I don't see you again or hear from you again, good luck on your exam, and I'll see you in the next video.